The SEC wraps up the first day of the early signing period. Who did good and who has a lot of opportunity? Brian Smith will join us to talk all about it. Locked On SEC starts now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. And today's episode brought to you by FanDuel. If you want to be right in the middle of the action throughout this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. Our buddy Brian Smith, our Locked On recruiting insider from the portal, joins us now. Brian, thanks for taking some time, man. I know it's been a pretty hectic 24 hours, really last couple of weeks for you.
Sleep is optional at some points in life, Chris, and that's just how it has to be. So I'll leave it at that.
Would you rather, when you're making all the recruiting trips, going to see guys in person, or this whole whirlwind of signing day stuff?
I'd rather be on the road because seeing guys live is the bottom end. You got bottom line. Like, there's nothing like seeing players live, and we're about to start that cycle again for late December through mid-April. It's just nonstop every weekend.
Well, I'll start here because there's a ton to touch on. Obviously, we cover the whole SEC. So I'll ask you first, how would you assess how the SEC did on signing day? Who kind of jumped out to you first?
Well, I'm going to start with LSU, man. Like, down in that area, like, that state is so good. And with all the coaching turmoil, they're still in a pretty good spot. They only got 16 commits.
Yeah,
but they're ranked 12th. That shows you how powerful the class is. The D tackles, I've told everybody this. Richard Anderson is as special as it gets. Some people don't rank him as high. I think he's unbelievable. He's doing 360 spin moves for sacks at 350 plus pounds. Okay, that's not a normal human being, and he may not be your best D tackle. They got Deuce Gerald's, and they also got that other guy that lives right down the street from the campus. Like, it's insane. So LSU is fascinating. I'm curious to see if they add anybody else. There's Jace Mathews, allegedly announcing on Friday he's the kid from Mississippi that everybody wants, a wide receiver. Auburn, Ole Miss, LSU, etc. That's a curious situation. Georgia's class is insane, but they did lose Jared Curtis. Never thought I would utter the following words, Chris. Vandy flipped a 5-star quarterback recruit from Georgia. Did you ever think you would bring that up on your podcast? Yes or no?
It's why I do want to get to him in a minute, but real quick, we'll kind of finish off a thought on LSU. So they did get Richard Anderson to sign. It sounded like he was going to wait. He did sign, so that was big, the #1 D lineman. But the #1 athlete, Lamar Brown, they said he's going to wait to kind of see who Lane Kiffin hires on the defensive side. So we'll see on that. Again, the LSU has to get him. That's the in-state kid that's been LSU through and through.
I'd be really surprised if Lamar didn't stay with the Tigers. I mean, A&M's calling him, I'm sure. It's probably one or the other, but that kid would have flipped already because Elko can recruit. Like, I love, by the way, just throw it out there now, Elko's class is very, very good. Yeah. That A&M is not going anywhere. They may not be 11-1 every year, but that team's going to be 9-3 and up most years. He's figured it out. So good for them.
One more thought on LSU. I did hear that they were working on flipping the quarterback Landon Duckworth from South Carolina. So as of this recording, we have not seen that. It hasn't happened yet, but I know both sides kind of working, and it would be a big loss for Shane Beamer and company to lose that kid. But it would be, I mean, this is Lane Kiffin going to work immediately, going, hey, that kid would look great in my offense.
Well, at one point, Duck was going to head to Ole Miss, so there's a connection there. And if Kiffin gets that kind of talent with the kinds of tight ends and receivers and running backs they get in Baton Rouge, that could be explosive. So I'm sure he's going to at least entertain it. I don't know if they're allowed to visit anymore. Maybe he doesn't know much about LSU. That's kind of awkward. But if I'm South Carolina, I'm scared to death. Because if Kiffin lost it in reverse, you're LSU, you'll figure it out. South Carolina can't lose Duckworth. That doesn't work that way for South Carolina. So that would be very bad for the Gamecocks.
Interesting thing too. LSU has a commit from Peyton Houston for 2027, and he came out and said, "Hey, I loved Lane Kiffin when I visited Ole Miss. I'm going to stay affirmed to LSU." He committed to Brian Kelly. He's keeping his commitment to Lane Kiffin. So
there you go.
There you
go. Absolutely.
We will get to a few other flips that happened, but let me jump to the other one. Vandy, you mentioned Jared Curtis flips from Georgia. I think Georgia's going to be fine. They've got depth at the quarterback spot, but what a get from for Vandy. And then we hear Clark Lee says yesterday that he's going to enroll early. So what a get. You're going to go from the Diego Pavia era, and it was masterful these last 2 years for Vanderbilt, but it sounds like Jared Curtis could walk in and be the starter from day one. When you saw him throughout his recruitment and all, I mean, is this kid the real deal?
Arm strength is insanity. He's a big kid that can move. Like, I'm not saying he's a quote unquote dual threat. He's mobile. He's not trying to run around to gain a bunch of yards, but he'll extend the play and then kill you with a sidearm throw as he falls out of bounds 40 yards down the field. His arm strength changes games, and he played against lower level competition. But Jared, like, look, man, this is different stuff. Jared Curtis's arm is crazy good. So it kind of reminds me in a way of a certain guy that plays in Buffalo right now. Not quite as tall, but it's that same kind of deal. Like, you can't teach it. So hopefully Vandy gets what they think they're getting, but just going to throw this out there. Southeastern Conference, Chris, is it very friendly to freshman quarterbacks in your experience?
Yeah, I mean, you have the Johnny Manziels. I mean, you got to be really good to thrive, right, I guess, as a true freshman. So
even he was a redshirt freshman. Like, it's not
true.
An easy gig. So I hope they have somebody as a buffer, but if not, Jared, welcome.
Yeah.
Good luck.
The other thing, I saw Vandy flipped a wide receiver, Owen Cabell, from Alabama. I mean, we're living in wild times, Brian, at Vandy's flipping recruits from Alabama.
Never thought I'd say that. But you know what? This is great for college football, and it's why you and I cover it. It's the most exciting sport in America, and I can't imagine doing anything else.
Let's touch on, we hit on Lane Kiffin and LSU. Let's touch on one of the other new hires this past week, Alex Golesh at Auburn. Looked like he did some work here his first couple of days on the job. What'd you make of Auburn? Obviously, the recruiting class, I want to say, was like 60, if that was all Hugh Freeze is doing, but looks like they did their best in trying to flip some kids last minute.
Well, they got the Corey Wells kid out of Petal, Mississippi, the defensive lineman. I forget the other kid's name. They got a D lineman they flipped from Penn State, 2 300-pounders. They were highly acclaimed recruits. Texas had the kid from Mississippi originally, so he's pretty good. So in less than 72 hours of being on the job, you get 2 big-time interior defensive linemen. Welcome to the SEC, Mr. Golesh. That was pretty impressive. They got a quarterback they brought over and a couple other kids. So good for Auburn. Nice start for them. And on that same vein, Florida's got several of their kids. They even got the Davion Groves kid to stay with them, the kid from the Dallas area. So the SEC has surprised me in many different ways. Some of the kids I thought were going to bolt stayed, and vice versa. The SEC never has any dull moments with recruiting, Chris.
I put together, so these are some of the notable names from Wednesday. You mentioned Auburn flips Reese Brush from USF. He was committed to Golesh at USF, so he comes over, and then D lineman Tavian Branch, D lineman Corey Wells, and then wide receivers Brian Williams and Deshaun Spencer. So again, I mean, Auburn's class was so far down, thanks Hugh Freeze and the golf course, but it seems like they did a pretty good job here.
Yeah, like considering where they were like 80th at one point. I mean, it was just unbelievable to end up, depending on the service you go by, top 40-ish, and they didn't burn a bunch of scholarships and just like waste them. I think they did a pretty good job. The only other thing that I'll say is now they got to make sure that they spend their scholarships correctly with the portal in combination with the 27 class, which they need a top 10 class. But pretty good start for Golesh. And the best news so far is, from what I've heard, Cam Coleman is staying at Auburn. That's going to be fun to watch him in that new offense.
You mentioned Florida and John Summerall. Hearing him talk this week, I mean, you fall in love with the guy. And Florida fans who were on the fence with him, when they heard him speak, like, oh, this guy might be badass. He brings over Brad White, the former defense coordinator at Kentucky. Like, I think they're going to do some work. And they got CJ Brana, the cornerback, to commit yesterday. So I mean, it feels like Billy Napier did a pretty decent job recruiting, but I think Summerall is going to be really good.
This is a real football coach. Like, for guys like you and I that kind of grew up with this 80s, 90s, early 2000s, he would have fit in 1995, 30 years ago, and been fine. Defensive-minded guy, doesn't take any BS. This is how we're going to do it. We're going to do it the proper way. I love that stuff. Saban probably would have liked this guy a lot. I'm pretty interested to see what he can do, because obviously Florida's an easy job. Conservatively, it's a top 10 job in America. I think it's top 5. But anyway, to make a long story short, he's got a pretty good roster. He's got a pretty darn good class. They got a few kids that could still sign. I'm curious to see where UF ends up next season. I think they could be a little better than people think, although let's see if DJ Lagway sticks around. I've heard some conflicting reports on that.
Hey guys, the holidays are officially here, which means gift giving season is on. And if you want something meaningful, personal, and guaranteed to get a reaction, Aura Frames is the gift that delivers every time. It's not just something you wrap, it's a way to share memories, because Aura isn't your average picture frame. You could preload the frame with photos before gifting it, so when they plug it in, the memories are already there. No apps to figure out, no setup headaches, just instant smiles. And whether you're looking for a gift for grandparents, parents, newlyweds, anyone who loves photos, you can even have endless uploads of photos and 30-second videos through the Aura app. You can add a personalized message right inside the frame so the gift feels thoughtful the moment it's open, and the packaging comes gift ready. No price tag, no wrapping needed. A huge win. For a limited time, save on the perfect gift by visiting Aura Frames. It's AURA frames.com and get $35 off Aura's best-selling Carver matte frames, named #1 by Wirecutter, by using promo code COLLEGE at checkout. It's AURAframes.com. Promo code COLLEGE. This deal is exclusive to listeners, and frames will sell out fast. So order yours today, now in time to get in time for the holidays. Support our show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply. Jump back into it with our buddy Brian Smith, host of The Portal and covering all things recruiting. He's our recruiting insider here on the Locked On Network. Taking a look at the recruiting rankings. It's weird to see the SEC not 1 or 2, but I think this is the weird portal era we live in, where guys are maybe prioritizing a little bit more in the portal and a little bit maybe less spending in recruiting. But USC 1, Oregon 2, Notre Dame 3. This is the 24/7 Sports Composite. Bama at 4, Tennessee 5, Georgia 6. Obviously, Georgia slid a little bit with the Curtis going to Vandy, but right. Alabama at 4. I look at some of the pieces they bring in. I mean, look, we had you on, Brian, when Kalen DeBoer got hired. I think the big question was, can Kalen DeBoer recruit down in the South? And he's done a great job of it so far.
They started getting the linemen, Chris. That's the bottom line. The difference, in my lifetime at least, the teams that win it from the SEC, they had guys that when you walk up and you shake their hand, you didn't see your hand. The offensive tackles and defensive tackle, like literally, I had that happen a few times. Like, holy cow, please don't break my hand there. It's different. And Bama's always had those kids in droves. The first class, he didn't get as many local guys. I was a little nervous. He started getting kids like Xavier, the big, I forget the last name, but the defensive end out of Georgia. Play for anybody. They get 3 or 4 guys that can be defensive tackles, need to grow into it, but athletes. Offensive line, they got 4 guys, including a JUCO kid. They're getting better there, and then the skill talent is really good. Again, they're top 3 DBs, or is getting as good as any, and they already have a loaded group. Xavier Griffin, that's the kid I was thinking of. Anyway, they got all these guys coming in. Probably a half dozen or so are going to play early, and then they got another freakazoid, great kid, by the way, Cedarian Morgan. For those of you who do not know who he is, 6'5", 215, legit. He lives close to where I do. That is a massive man. He is going to play early in Tuscaloosa. Conservatively, I think that's a class that Alabama fans should be very, very happy with.
I did see, too, kind of unique these days, I guess. Bama did sign 2 quarterbacks, 3-star prospect Taden Kawa, and then 4-star Saini Jet Tomola from the #1 prospect from Nebraska. And Kalen DeBoer was asked about it. He said, you just don't know what the future is. So you add as many kids as you can, and some are going to leave, some are going to lose, stay or leave, whatever. But I think that's it's interesting, the sign of the times that, like, look, we're just taking kids. I mean, they may stay, they may not.
I think this is the smart move. Quarterbacks, a buddy of mine who studied this, don't go into specifics of schools, but just over half the kids at the school that he covers since early 80s at quarterback have transferred. This is long before the portal. Quarterbacks just don't stick around if they don't play. So I understand what DeBoer is talking about, because factually, he's right. And the Caldwell kid's like 6'5", 235. He has a cannon. Is he raw? Yeah. But if you can take a quarterback like that and he can just pick up the system, maybe it's not till his junior year. Who knows? But with his arm strength and size, you know what kind of skill players Bama's getting to throw to. Yeah. So, yeah, it shouldn't be that hard. And if a kid like that doesn't work out, you got the Tomlin. Like, he's the all-time leading passer in the state of Nebraska. I know it's not like quarterback haven, but you know he can throw it. And they can develop quarterbacks. They've proven that wherever DeBoer's been. So this is a smart decision.
Yeah, you still got Keelan Russell, who was the prize recruit from
Oh,
last
yeah,
year.
yeah.
So, yeah, they're going to be fine there. Let's take a look at some of the other notables. Mississippi State did a good job of finishing strong. They flipped Micah Nickerson from Mizzou, Tico Crittenden from Florida State, some big D linemen. I think they got a safety as well. And where's Mississippi State ranked? 28th. I mean, that's strong. Top 30 for Mississippi State is really good for Jeff Levy.
When I saw some of the kids they were getting, and they started like they're getting kids that the Auburns and Alabamas and Tennessees and stuff want, getting them on campus. They're doing something with their NIL and what they're promoting. And I think give Levy credit, think about how many games they were in this year, Chris, until late in the game. Last year, that just wasn't the case. I mean, they are so much better in one season. Levy, I know his record's not great, but he did one of the better jobs in the SEC this year compared to what the Bulldogs were the year before. So I think he could sell that. Now, can we take that next step? If we get you, we can go up to the next level. And they've sold that. So good for them.
Yeah, they just would have won that stupid Florida game. They were in field goal range. They threw the pick. That was their 6th win. They would have been 6-6.
They'd have been bowl eligible.
Yeah, they would have been going bowling. On the flip side, Ole Miss, things have moved very quickly for them with transitioning from Lane Kiffin and now going to Pete Golding. But I guess the strength with them, and look, there were kids decommitting and flipping. I saw a wide receiver flip to Oregon State. Obviously, Lane brought a couple kids over to LSU. But all things considered, I guess Ole Miss did a pretty good job considering this whole thing was just thrown together in a 48-hour period.
They're lucky they're signing 5 players. Like, they lost the majority of their offensive staff. They don't know until the last second, 3 days for signing day, who their head coach is. And on top of that, it's a guy that doesn't have any head coaching experience. I know Ole Miss fans don't want to hear it, but you're probably ahead of the curve considering what happened. You're lucky Pete Golding wanted it. And obviously, he's a guy that's been there a while. They could have been in a lot worse spot. Now, the question I have is, they've been pretty portal heavy. Are they going to be anywhere near as good? Because Kiffin was unbelievable at reading the portal. Like, he was really good at it. They're going to have to be that again without him. That's going to be the curious part, because Ole Miss has never been a top 10 recruiting school anyway. So they need to use those scholarships accordingly and make the right decisions, because they still got a pretty good roster.
The good news is, too, I mean, they get, when you look at them going to a playoff game, if they win, more of a national stage for them. And, hey, come play for us. We're winning playoff games without Lane Kiffin. So we'll see what happens there. A few other notes. Georgia flipped an old lineman from Kentucky, Tyreek Jemison. Texas flipped a safety from UCLA, Torrey Davis. But I also saw Texas did lose a big D lineman, flipped over to North Carolina. So Bill Belichick coming in and dipping in and grabbing a guy or two. But again, as we look at, Texas sitting right there, top 10. This is where Sark lives.
Texas being in the top 10 in recruiting is like saying that I got up this morning. It's the expected. Like, it's funny though, and I'll admit that I'm guilty. They were like, I forget which service I was looking at. They had them like 7th or whatever. And I just bypassed, it's Texas. Yeah. If that's, you know what I mean? Like, it's, if they don't have a top 5 class, everybody yawns, myself included, and I shouldn't do that. That is a young roster, and I know Arch took a beating this year publicly. They've got a ton of players back. I'm just going to say it. They should be top 5 next year, and if you want to throw bricks at me, go right ahead. But they've got a lot of players back and another top 10 class. So that's going to be an interesting team.
I might put them preseason 1 next year if Arch is back. And
I know it's dangerous, but I understand.
Dia Bell, by the way, the quarterback, son of Raja Bell, he's the prized recruit of this class. And they're just lining them up. Sark, always, okay, Arch will come back. He'll have a great year. Bell will come in right behind him. So that's how you do it. You get this thing set up. I kind of glanced over. We didn't touch real quick on number 5, Tennessee. They had some flips yesterday in D lineman Carter Gooden and the edge Jordan Carter. It just jumps out to me because Heupel, we know the offense is always going to be good, but man, they need to get that defense back on track, because that was their Achilles heel this year.
Jordan Carter is a kid I saw a couple weeks ago. Plays at Douglas County, just outside Atlanta. He's one of those guys that I didn't, quote unquote, need a roster for. When I walked onto the field, I said, oh, it's that guy. He was one of those guys. I didn't need to introduce myself or ask. That's Jordan Carter. Yeah, he was a kid that was committed to A&M for a long time, really talented. And then the Gooden kid, he's from one of the schools up in the Northeast. Penn State wanted him. UCLA wanted him. Like, it was kind of an unusual recruitment. Of course, coaching changes at both those schools. That's a great late pickup. He's like 260. Tennessee's got a really good defensive coordinator. I'm curious to see what they do in the portal, but nobody talks about their recruiting. They do a pretty darn good job with the Vols. And Faison Brandon. People don't know him. Yeah, you need to. Freaky athlete at quarterback. It won't be long before he's behind center for the Vols.
One more for you. Oklahoma. I know Brent Venables lives for defense, and they got a big kid, the edge, Jake Krull. But it jumps out to me, though. I mean, Bo Bentley, the quarterback, and wide receivers galore for Oklahoma. Rogers, Odom, Petit. I mean, it's just, for some reason, Oklahoma, they just always seem to get big-time receivers and quarterbacks.
I think the Heisman Trophy thing, when they bring the kids in for the visit, see that over there? It's probably not hard. And that receiver that plays for the Cowboys that played at Oklahoma, they probably mentioned that once or twice. Like, it's probably not a hard sell. But, yeah, they're doing good. Jake Krell is a great kid. He's the nastiest technical edge rusher that I've ever scouted. At Under Armour this year, he won like 12 reps in a row. It was insane. He's a guy that's going to play early, and he is the epitome of what you would think of that would play at Oklahoma with the way they get after it in a one-gap scheme. I expect him to play early. And they got some other guys too. Like, defense is not hard for the Sooners to sell it. By the way, they already have, in my opinion, the number one pass rusher in the class of 27 committed to out of Utah. So they're headed in the right direction in Soonerland.
Last thing for you, Brian, I saw there were a number of kids who said on Wednesday they're not going to sign and they're going to wait, and whether that's waiting till Friday or waiting until February. Do you think this starts to be a little bit more trend, and is this transactional? Is this the agent going, hey, we got a better offer from somewhere else, let's hold off? I mean, is that really where we are now?
Yes. There are a few kids that it's flat out like that. I won't go into specifics, but I got asked in another podcast yesterday, hey, Brian, so-and-so just flipped from this school to this one. Why do you think that is? And I said, it's real simple. He got a bigger offer because there's no way, and you know what, that he's going to that school unless it was. It was like, you got to be kidding me. If that's what the kid wants to do, it's a free country. But like the school he flipped from to that one, it's like, come on, it doesn't make any sense. So sometimes the kids follow the money, and it's not like adults don't do it too. But I think it's still best if kids follow the long-term plan of development and getting their degree, but who am I?
Do you think all the talk of changing the calendar, can we put the genie back in the bottle? Can we go back to just February and eliminate the early signing period?
Chris, you just saying that, you might have been added to several hit lists. Coaches want those kids in January. That genie is out of the bottle. The portal thing sucks regardless because it's going to run into the playoffs somehow. I don't think there is a quote-unquote fix. You could argue maybe a few days differently, but for those that are curious, it's January 2nd through the 16th this year when the open period is. Playoffs are going on. It's very awkward, but I don't know the answer either, so I'm not much help.
Yeah, Bo Perbula had to leave Penn State in the middle of the playoff run to go to Mizzou. I mean, that's how this thing works. So we'll see. It's going to be fascinating. Brian, always appreciate the insight. I know you're super busy, man. Thanks again.
Absolutely. Have a good one.
Hey, guys, NFL Sundays, they move fast. One big play, and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With the FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is best when the game starts to shift, a receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, the momentum flips over after a turnover. FanDuel, they let you jump into the moment. Live spreads and money lines adjust instantly. Player props update as guys heat up, and you can bet the next touchdown scores, drive results, totals, whatever it is. It will keep every snap, every drive, every possibility more exciting. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action throughout the rest of this NFL season, go to FanDuel.com. Place your NFL live bets all season long. It is FanDuel. The game moves fast over at FanDuel.com. All right, we're along here, Locked On SEC, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, the number one sports podcast network out there. Thanks again to Brian Smith for joining us. A couple more notes before we wrap up today's show. And this was interesting news yesterday. If you missed this, Texas A&M, their top assistant offensive coordinator, Colin Klein, is reportedly going to be moving on. According to Reports out there, Kansas State coach Chris Kleiman is announcing his retirement this week, and Colin Klein has been lined up to replace him. The Mercury newspaper there in Manhattan, Kansas, broke the news on Wednesday. The 36-year-old Colin Klein has directed the Aggies offense the last 2 seasons. Coaching the quarterbacks there in College Station has certainly gotten the most out of Marcel Reed. Klein was reportedly as a target for USF to replace Alex Golesh there before the news came out of Kleiman's sudden retirement. And of course, Colin Klein, former quarterback there at Kansas State, and I'm sure would love to return back home to Manhattan. So it's a tough loss for Texas A&M. We'll see what direction they go in replacing Colin Klein, who will take over their offense next year. And of course, obviously, Klein is going to stick around and coach the Aggies throughout this playoff and see how deep they can go. But again, congrats to Colin Klein. He certainly has had some massive success there in College Station with that offense. It's been lights out this year, passing and running game this year. Last year was just the running game. This year, he's gotten the most out of the passing game. Casey Concepcion and Mario Craver have taken Marcel Reed's game to another level. How about over at LSU? Some reports out that Ed Ogeron still very much interested in joining Lane Kiffin's staff. Doing an interview in Jacksonville radio this week, Ed Ogeron asked, would you consider joining Kiffin's staff if he asked you? He said, quote, I would consider it, yes. I would definitely consider it, no question. Lane and I have worked together at 3 schools. I love him. He and I are good friends. I believe in him. So definitely, if he does ask me to return to LSU, I would consider it, no question. Coach O back in the SEC on a sideline. All right, that is going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. Thank you guys for making us your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers. And hey, a reminder, if you live in Louisiana, Mississippi, or Alabama, you can catch us daily on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network. Weekdays at 11:30 a.m. Central, Gulf Coast Sports Entertainment Network. I'm Chris Gordy. Thanks again to Brian Smith for joining us. Talk to you guys tomorrow right here on Locked On SEC.